Welcome back. Shipping fever, bronchial pneumonia, bovine respiratory disease. Whatever term you're most familiar with, the problem is still the same. BRD can spread fast, and it can cost beef producers as much as $900 million per year. We learn more about ways to win the battle against BRD as Brian Baxter reports from western Iowa.
It's a snowy, freezing morning in western Iowa, and Ron Vogel is checking on his feeder calves. Like producers across most of the country, this has been a tough winter for Ron, but he has long experience in caring for his animals and ensuring they stay healthy.
Basically, I've been feeding cattle all my life. I was born and raised on this farm, lived here most of the time. If you're feeding cattle, you're feeding to make a profit, and to make a profit, you've got to get that critter gaining. It's got to be eating all the time. You can't be standing around the yard doing nothing or breathing heavy or coughing and that, and just standing there. They got to be eating. That's the name of the game. You aren't going to keep them healthy if they don't eat.
Ron sources his animals from Montana and trucks them more than 1,000 miles to Iowa. That trip can be stressful, so to keep the calves healthy, he works closely with his veterinarian, Tom Ulrichsen, to precondition and vaccinate his calves.
To me, you just feel more relaxed feeding cattle if you got a competent veterinarian that you can contact and converse with, and it's just, I just had a good relationship with Tom and the rest of the crew in there. It's just so much easier after you've rode 1,000 miles with cattle all night long. It's nice to sit down and relax,
He's been a great producer. He goes out there, sees the cattle, brings them back, and we always run them through our clinic here through our chute, and he gets them vaccinated. A couple years ago, he brought a group in, and we had that weather change, and he had some sick cattle out there, and so I used Zactran on those cattle, and they responded real well, and so he's been a big Zactran fan ever since. He usually doesn't have much trouble with cattle, but he's always got a bottle of Zactran on hand, and in case he gets one or two that's feeling a little punk some morning, and so it's worked great for him.
This kind of year with record snow and cold and the rapid swing in temperatures can be especially hard on long-haul calves that may already be at higher risk for bovine respiratory disease or BRD.
Obviously, once they get them in and get them weaned, the weather changes, gets a little rough, you're going to see some BRD, and we've had a lot of that this year because of the change in the temperatures. We've had a fairly dry winter, but the temperature's been 40 one day, and 3 days later it might be -7 below zero, and that's been a lot of challenge for those calves out there. So again, with the prevention, with the precondition program, the shots in them, and then if we do run into a problem, we go in and vaccinate.
Because BRD can cost a producer so much money, either in death loss or lost weight gain, it pays to stay ahead of the disease. A key step in beating BRD is to keep a close eye on how the calves look and behave every day.
I look at the eyes. If they're bright out of the eyes, you can just about tell bloodshot eyes, and when they really get bad, then you got the old ear drop down. And if they're laying around, my policy is, if they don't come up and eat, I watch them real close, and if I think they might be just off or aren't feeling good, then I let it go to the next feeding, and then I'll treat them.
Early detection is the key. The sooner you get them, the better results you're going to have. And we do see guys that have missed them or they've treated, and then they're not responding, so they call us in. We've had real good luck with Zactran. Most of the pneumonias that we're seeing are bacterial, and there might be a combination, but with the vaccines we have, we're seeing more of a bacterial pneumonia or a mycoplasma pneumonia. And so we've got to have a drug that will treat those, and for me, we're seeing an increase of mycoplasma, and that's the nice thing about Zactran, it'll treat both, and it's labeled for both. So when I come in with an animal, I'm just treating, I have nothing to go on, and yet I know from past history that I'm probably, if I send a sample of those lungs in, I'm going to find mycoplasma in addition to a Pasteurella or Mannheimia hemolytica. I can come with Zactran.
In fact, when BRD shows up in an animal, Dr. Ulrichsen has become a believer in using the one-shot power of Zactran to deliver a cost-effective, rapid response.
The nice thing about Zactran, a couple things. First of all, there's a real kick up front. It really hammers that bug hard. So you'll see results within the first 24 hours.
They'll go back to eating sooner than they ever did before. Usually I'll give an animal a shot, say in the morning here, and they'll be up to the bunk eating right away.
The other nice thing about Zactran, it's 10 days treatment. So you give one shot, you don't have to touch the animal, run him in the chute again, stress him out again, giving 2 and 3 sets of shots. So one shot, 10 days, gives a real good kick up front, very strong antibiotic, and most of the time I give it one shot of Zactran and we don't have to worry about him again.
That's what Tom suggested here several years ago when it come out. I said, what do you got that works better than what we have been? And that's it, Zactran.
Both Ron Vogel and Dr. Ulrichsen have decades of experience in working with and caring for cattle, so they know that preconditioning, keeping a close eye on calves, ensuring they have all the water and feed they need, and minimizing stress are all keys to preventing BRD. But they also know that a product like Zactran, once proven, delivers real value.
When Zactran came out a couple years ago, I was a little bit hesitant, and I kind of let other people try them. But my first big experience with Zactran was a client that called me. He had 120 head of cattle that he brought in a couple weeks before. They had gotten sick. He'd used several different products on them. He had 6 deads on a Saturday morning when he called me. I went out there, posted them, looked like Pastorella. I said, there's only one left that I'm going to use, and that's going to be Zactran. The cattle the next morning were up eating, and they took off after that. So I've been a big cheerleader for Zactran ever since.
In western Iowa, I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Here's some important safety information. For use in cattle only, do not treat cattle within 35 days of slaughter. Because a discard time in milk has not been established, do not use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older, or in calves to be processed for veal. The effects of Zactran on bovine reproductive performance, pregnancy, and lactation have not been determined.
Fighting and winning the battle against BRD is essential to protecting the bottom line for your beef operation. To learn more about exactly why you should consider Zactran and do a cost comparison, visit the website Zactran.com.